Hello. Pixelan Smart Blur Pro is a plugin for Movie Edit Pro that allows you to blur selectively while retaining desired details, highlights, and edges, yet smoothly blur areas in between. In this second of 3 tutorials, I'll show how to selectively smooth out wrinkles on skin on one face without affecting the surrounding area or without affecting a second face, and also how to use the organic mask and combine it with the shape mask. In the first tutorial, I gave an introduction to Smart Blur Pro and showed how to blur a selected area, such as a face. In the third tutorial, I'll show how to use keyframing within Smart Blur Pro to follow the action. Let's get started. I've placed an image on the timeline with 2 faces. Select the image object, go to the Effects tab, Pixelan, and select Smart Blur Pro. This opens the interface with the image and by default applies a preset. You can see that the faces are already smoothed. As a refresher, I'll quickly run through the features presented in the first tutorial. At the top of the menu window, click on where it says click here to load a preset. This opens the effects browser and shows a preview of the preset effects. There are menu buttons at the top for help, preferences, save, clear, and a check mark to apply the effects and return to the movie editor. You can also exit without applying the effect or making changes. There are undo and redo buttons. Split preview will split the screen to show side by side the effect with the original. This should be turned off when finished with the effect, or else it too becomes an effect in your video. At the bottom middle of the screen are transport buttons and a slider showing where you are in the clip. There are 3 main parts to Smart Blur Pro: blur, shape mask, and organic mask. Blur size is the main effect. All of the other parameters are adjustments to this blur size. Watch the screen while I move the blur size slider to the right. The entire screen gets progressively blurry. If blur is 0, the other parameters have no effect. Smartness preserves the main edges of the image. As we increase the parameter, the main edges start to become visible until everything is visible at 100. The other parameters, details, highlights, and edges, all act to fine-tune the blur effect. To get different effects, the various parameters have to be combined. The best way to start is to select a preset closest to the effect that you want and then adjust the settings. Opening the shape mask area shows another set of parameters. We saw these in the first tutorial, so we'll just run through this mask quickly. The parameters include the type of shape mask, which is round here, size and edge softness, and movement tools. I'll turn on the mask by clicking on View the Mask. The screen is white because the strength is 0. By increasing the strength, the black part of the mask increases until fully black at 100. Bringing up edge softness produces a gradient from black towards white. I'll uncheck View the Mask to see the results. We see the circle on the screen. Remember, this was the black part of the mask and it shows the unblurred image. Now I can drag the circle around and place it where I want, such as over a face. I'll do the inverse by changing the shape from round to round inverted. This now blurs the face and shows the rest of the image. I'll turn off the mask effects for now and look at how to use the blur effects for skin smoothing. Let's adjust the blur parameters. Since our objective is to do some skin smoothing, we'll adjust the blur parameters to get the result. I'll work on a close-up of the man's face so that you can see the effects better. The mild one preset had a blur size of 20 and a smartness of 40. With only the blur size at 20, the entire image is somewhat blurry. Watch what happens as I bring up the smartness level. The main edges come into focus and the wrinkles on the man's face are gone. Now I'll reduce the blur size to 0 and you can see that the wrinkles come back. So the combination of blur size and smartness gives us the skin smoothing effect that we're looking for. However, with the mild 1 effect, size at 20, smartness at 40, notice 2 things. The face looks too plastic. The entire image is smooth. Look at the pattern on the shirt. It's gone. To reduce the plastic effect and further touch up the image, I'll increase details. After all, no one's face is completely smooth. Now we see more detail. As I increase edges, the wrinkles start to come back, so I'll leave this towards the low end. Thus, by combining effects, we get skin smoothing, but not too much. You have to make finer adjustments to get the effects that work for you. Now for the second problem, how to limit the effect to just the face. By adding a shape mask, we can limit the effect to within the shape, but even within the mask area, there will be some features that we don't want to smooth, such as clothing and jewelry. The solution is to add an organic mask. I'll first reset the blur effects to 0. The organic mask limits where the effect will appear based on the color or luminance within the scene. You can choose a section preset at the right for common settings or make up your own. Let's look at the parameters. Target. Use this to choose which qualities define the target area. For example, to preserve or apply the effect on the man's skin color, click on the eyedropper to select it and then touch what looks like an average color on the skin. This sets the color to be preserved or acted on. Now select the target's color in the box. If you are doing some other kind of work, you can use the color swatch to choose a color or luminance. To really illustrate the use of this mask, we'll take a look at the shirt. Note that the shirt is a two-tone blue. Using the eyedropper, I'll try to select the lighter blue. Continuing on with the parameters, strength sets the strength of the source mask. Negative values will invert the mask. Increasing range preserves or uses additional hue luminance areas that are similar to the target. Here there are no negative values. Fall off increases the feathering around preserved or used colors. Again, there are no negative values. And to view the mask, turn it on. Within the shape mask, you can choose whether the organic mask adds or subtracts from any shape mask that is present. We'll come back to this later. Mix with original. This alters the effect's overall strength, and I won't be using this in this tutorial. Let's turn on the mask. Looking at this mask, we see a white screen because the strength of the mask is 0. Increasing strength will make the area with the selected color black to preserve it from the blur effect. Reducing strength below 0 does the opposite and the blue area becomes whiter, meaning that this is where the effect will be applied. I'll set the mask strength to 100. Note that the shirt is quite dark and there are some other darker areas elsewhere, meaning that there is some blue there as well. Let's look at the other two parameters. I'll move range and fall off to 0. Note that the lighter blue that we chose shows up quite well as a dark check pattern, and the rest of the blues have disappeared. Increasing the range adds this hue or shade to the selected color. This widens the blue range, and some dark spots, actually blue, start to appear in other areas. Increasing fall off adds some feathering around the affected area and adds more darkness to the shirt, and in other parts of the image as well. Note that other parts of the shirt have hardly any detail. This is because the blue tone is different due to lighting. Increasing the range starts to bring in more of the shirt, but it also brings in more dark areas of the image. Now I'll move the strength to -100, and the shirt area is now white. With these parameters set, we should see the blur effect in the whiter areas of the mask. I'll turn off the mask and bring up the blur size. Note that only the shirt is affected. The check pattern has been smoothed. Adding in some smartness only affects the shirt and adds some detail to the major edges. At full smartness, the check pattern comes back. The analogy of the shirt to skin is that the lighter blue represents the skin and the darker blue the wrinkles. Our effect smooths out the wrinkles, or in this case, smooths out the pattern on the shirt. Now we want to limit the effect to just the shirt area. With the shirt blurred, let's add in a shape mask to see how to use the combination. I'll use the round inverted shape. I'll set the strength to 100, reduce edge softness to 0, and the size to about, say, 5 or 6, and then drag the mask over top of the shirt. Now we only see a part of the shirt that's blurred and a part that's not. Now, why inverted? Look at the mask. We have to be consistent, and we want the effect to occur in the white area, and that is what the inverted mask gives us. Our organic mask parameters are set to blur the shirt color in the white part of the mask as well, and adding the shape mask also limits the blurring to within the white part of the shape mask. Now we'll go back to the normal size image, and let's go back to the skin. We want firstly to smooth some wrinkles on the man's face, so I'll choose an area on the face with the eyedropper. Note that the shirt is now back to normal. Now I'll move the mask over the face, change the size to about 16 to just cover the face and not go too much into the hair, and adjust the softness to a slight amount, say 10. Now I'll fix up the blur parameters. Set blur size to 15, smartness to 70, details to 50, highlights to 100, and a small amount of edges, say 8 or 9. Lastly, I'll adjust the organic mask by looking at the mask. This seems to adequately cover the man's face with white, which is the area to be smoothed. Turn off the mask. I think this looks pretty good. Note that we've smoothed the man's skin with no effect on the shirt and without smoothing the lady's face. I'll accept this. Like the previous tutorial, there's a bonus. We want to have both faces touched up, but the amounts required are different, so we need to have a second image for the lady. I'll make 2 copies and place them one below the other on tracks 2 and 3, and select the one on track 3 and reopen SmartBlur Pro. I've reset the blurs to 0 and also removed the organic mask. To see the shape mask, we'll just increase the size here a little bit, and then we'll click on the checkbox and drag the mask over top of the lady's face. In her case, we need to get the neck as well, so an oval shape would be more suitable. I'll select the oval to inverted mask and quickly look at it. I'll just adjust the mask over the lady's face and neck area, and I think we've got it. Now we need to get the skin tone of the lady. I'll turn off the blur and reset the organic mask to -100 and select an average area on the lady's face with the eyedropper. Let's see the organic mask. I'll increase the range to about 57, fall off to 27, which makes the face and throat area suitably white for the mask. I'll turn off the mask and start adjusting the blur parameters. I'll move the blur size to 20, smartness to 70. I need a bit more detail, so I'll increase the details to 25. I can increase the highlights to 100, which should protect some of the whitest hair that's in the mask. Finally, I'll turn the edges up to about 10. The face doesn't look too plastic, and the major wrinkles have been smoothed, and I'll accept it. Now we only see the changes to the lady's face, so we need to get the mask in the middle track. Click on this one and open it in SmartBlur Pro. Turn on the shape mask. The area that we want to see will be masked because it's white, but that's not a problem. I could invert the mask here, but I'll just accept it. Now, go to Video Effects, Chroma Key, and click on Alpha. This still does not do the job because the mask needs to be inverted. Note that the arrow in the mask is pointing downwards. Click on it to invert it. And we now have our 2 subjects with smooth skin, each with different parameters and no smoothing outside of the facial areas. Here it is full screen, and I'll just turn off the effects. And now back on. See the difference? It's subtle, but effective. Now you've seen how most of the parameters work in SmartBlur Pro, and you can now go and test out your own effects and try out other masks. I hope that this has helped you to understand how to get started using SmartBlur Pro, how to smooth skin, and how to combine shape and organic masks. There are many other possibilities with SmartBlur Pro. You just have to use your imagination. Take a look at the other tutorials, including the introduction, if you did not fully understand some of the tools and parameters here, and also the tutorial on how to keyframe in Pixelan Smart Blur Pro to follow the action or modify the effects over time. Thank you for watching. Enjoy.